Welcome to African Legacy. I am Moussa Ibrahim. Oliver Tambo was a prominent icon of African liberation. For decades, he fought with his brothers and sisters in South Africa against the apartheid regime. He inspired so many and still inspires so many. Today, in the beautiful city of St. Petersburg, I have with me his daughter, Nomatemba. Welcome, sister.
Thank you, my dear brother.
Tell us about the legacy of your late father.
Well, I think the first thing that I should say is that for South Africa, he was our first diplomat. He was known for his brilliant mind. He was a good strategist, very, very good. He was known for his analytical thinking. And the other thing I think that many people may not realize is that he led the largest anti-apartheid solidarity movement in the 20th century. And a huge achievement. And he did this mainly by using diplomatic skills. He went to the United Nations. So, for example, in 1974, the United Nations, they suspended South Africa's membership because of the international opposition to apartheid. That was done on his watch. He went to churches internationally, and he got the support of the international religious groups to stand up against apartheid. He went to individuals, countries. He traveled the globe for 29 years. And what was his mission? His mission was to tell the world about what was happening in South Africa, the injustices that were being done to the South African people, and to internationalize it by getting the citizens of the world and their governments to stand up and say, this is an abuse of human rights. And he did it so successfully that ultimately we managed to go home, back to South Africa. And for him, job well done, mission accomplished. And I think that's the message that he would want people to know, that he was given a job to do and he did it. But of course, in that, he still was a family man. He just had a large family because it wasn't just me and my brothers and sister. He had hundreds of children, thousands of children all over the world, particularly after 1976, the Soweto uprisings. When a lot of our youth left the country, they wanted to come, they wanted to take arms and fight against the apartheid regime.
What a talent to be able to have this global vision and at the same time be present and powerful on a local level and actually linked to the younger generations of South Africa. Do you think in this way we can take inspiration from him and seek global cooperation against injustice everywhere? Or are the circumstances now different because of international division?
They're not different. They're not different. One of the things he said, which I think is so applicable today, when we look at our youth and the very hard life, actually, that so many of them have to live. He said that a country that does not care for its youth doesn't deserve its future. And I think we need to tell that to our young people. We need them to understand that we do care about them. We do worry about them. We do want them to have a future. Because so many, I think, feel despondent. They feel they're voiceless. They don't know where to look for hope. But the hope is there. It's there. And people like my father, there are so many of my fathers around the world, not just in South Africa, but in our continent, outside of our continent. We, of course, are talking about South Africa with me. But the African continent is full of huge leaders who've taken their people and their youth through to liberation, to a space where they could have self-determination and where they could decide their own destiny. Now, in this time, it's really important that our youth understand that they can decide their own destiny. It's a choice.
Do you think the youth of Africa today can actually understand his diplomatic language and his peaceful work with the international community, which proved successful, as you said? Or do you think the youth of today is more engaged sometimes in more radicalized ideologies and more radicalized ways of protesting and of fighting against injustice?
You know, when he was young and he was new to the political arena, if I can put it like that, he was also considered a radical. So there's nothing wrong with young people having extreme views and holding them with passion. The thing is to take that passion, intellectualize it, make it work for you, make it useful for your community, whether that's in a village, in a city, in a country, on a continent, in the world. Be useful, be productive. And I think that message is for all ages, it's not just for the youth.
On the international level, we cannot say that in the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, all international powers were fighting against apartheid regime on the same level. The Soviet Union, for example, gave much help to the liberation movements of Africa, while some Western powers supported some unjust colonial powers in the continent. Do you think the picture is still similar, or is it different?
I think very often when we look at global politics, the one thing you can never ignore is national interest. So if it's in your national interest to go to the left, you go to the left. If it's to go to the right, you go to the right. And every country has its own reasons. I wouldn't want to be the one to say that this is better than that. But from my perspective as a black South African, yes, the Soviet Union and many communist countries, socialist countries, they supported us.
For decades?
For decades. Many Western countries, capitalist countries, didn't. But then you had the bunch in the middle, the Scandinavian countries, hugely supportive of the anti-apartheid cause and of injustices generally on our continent. So I think it depends on the depth of relationship that you have with any given country or rulers of that country. That helps. The level of education you have amongst the different communities. Now, for example, with the Soviet Union, they understood us well. They took interest in time to understand us. We understood them well. Our young people came to university in Moscow. They learnt Russian. My first boyfriend was a black South African boy who had been to a Russian university. He tried to teach me to speak Russian. So, you know, we were very comfortable with that kind of relationship. The same with Cuba. The same with so many other countries, Northern Africa, particularly Algeria, I could say, for example. A country that was hugely supportive. In fact, Algeria was one of the first countries to give my father a passport when he left South Africa. You know,
throughout the 70s and the 80s, especially Gaddafi and Libya was
I was about to say Libya. You know, I mean, there's so many countries
Egypt's
that did
Nasser
so much.
Before that, of course.
Nasser, hugely important. Great, great man. So we have a legacy, a communal legacy, if I can put it like that.
There's such talk about diplomacy from your side, and yourself is a diplomat. And it's, for me, I have no idea how you could approach young Africans and encourage them to take up diplomacy. It is not something that is common in social media, for example, or a common dream for a young African woman or man to think of this as a way of changing things. Do you think diplomacy can actually be a way forward for young Africans to think, for example, about how to unite the continent diplomatically, politically, how to approach different international powers for the good of the continent diplomatically again? Is that something that would tempt young Africans these days?
My brother, what are we doing now? We're talking. We're exchanging ideas. You're asking me questions. I'm answering your questions. We're having a dialogue. No? Diplomacy. Take that word away because it distracts people. And talk about relationships, building relationships, learning about each other. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Where can I support you? Where can you support me? How can we create something positive and strong together? That's diplomacy. But if you put the word diplomacy there, maybe people are going to take a step back. But if you talk about making friends and building relations, understanding, fixing problems, everybody does it every single day.
For the challenges facing Africans everywhere, there are hard realities that go beyond the nice talk and the diplomatic approach. There are harsh economic realities, harsh political divisions. How can we tackle these divisions and realities inspired by the great leaders of Africa, such as your father? How is this relating to your own work as a diplomat, as an African woman who existed not just on the South African scene, but on the international scene?
You have to talk.
Again.
It's all about communication. If you don't talk, you cannot understand anything about anybody.
Do you talk to whom? You talk to yourself, to others?
No, you talk to others and you understand. And if you have a family, you know yourself. There is no family that doesn't have harsh words. There's no family where extreme positions often are not taken. But you push through because you have a shared vision of what a future should look like for your family. So you will fight, you will disagree, you may not talk for a while, but ultimately you have to talk, because if you don't talk, nothing can become resolved. And honestly, for all the things that are happening in the world, if people could put aside a minute to say, what do we want together, that we are prepared to push all the other things aside. What do we want together? Do we want our children to grow up with food in their stomachs, a roof over their heads, a future? If so, what are we doing to make that happen? Because if you were saying that to your wife and you two were always fighting, in the end you'd say the children come first. Am I right?
Well, we are today here in St. Petersburg attending a big gathering of talking and dialogue. And it's happening between the continent of Africa and the Russian Federation, discussing economic cooperation, political peace talk. What do you think can come out of such gathering? If, of course, the hearts are in the right place, and if people are truly willing to talk, have a dialogue, and advance the causes of justice and social change together. Can Russia and Africa do something good together, in your opinion?
Why not? And also, you see, the thing is that what needs to change, I think, is this notion that when people talk about a country, it's one. But when they talk about Zambia, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Ghana, Kenya, we're all clumped together as the continent, Africa. And so there is this tendency to say, there is this continent with 53 odd different countries, and here's one. One, if you're going to talk to 53, must be a very patient one.
A very patient one.
Yes, because you have 53 people talking, not one person talking back to you.
But don't these 53 countries have common problems and common reality and common challenges?
But they also have different realities and different challenges. And again, it comes to self-interest. The interest of each country is for the betterment of their citizens. What we're trying to do now as the AU is to say that we have to find ways where what happens within us is more important than what happens outside of us. That we determine ourselves. We need to be more introspective, maybe. And we need to decide that wonderful to have relationships with other countries, but we need to say African solutions for African problems, not Western solutions for African problems.
We also have the BRICS group, which is mainly composed of global South countries, Brazil, India, South Africa, of course, China, and then Russia from the north. It has been going on for years. There are many trade agreements, political agreements, and it seems that more African countries want to join the BRICS group. Algeria have declared its intention to join, Egypt, Tunisia, Nigeria, many other countries. Do you think in the BRICS group there is a space for dialogue, for benefits for all, economic change? Would you, as a diplomat and as someone who's been active in the continent and internationally, do you think the BRICS group provides a good opportunity for Africans to move forward?
I think any group would provide a good opportunity for any countries, so long as they were looking for peace, they were looking for prosperity, they were looking for a better life for their people, and they were looking for ways in which to productively engage. without looking for destruction, without looking for hegemony and all of those kind of things. We really are a band of equals. That's the way that I was brought up. And that's the way that the organization that my father led for many years, that's what they believed, that we are a band of equals.
Did your father think of himself as African?
How on earth could he not? What else would he think of himself as?
So would you think that the Pan-African vision is organic and essential to his legacy?
I think so. He was a Pan-Africanist, yes. And I think that, you know, the whole notion of that kind of thinking, if it's true and unpolluted, can only take us further to where we want to go as individual countries within our continent. But, you know, we come from so many different historical backgrounds. Francophone Africa, Anglophone Africa, then Portuguese-speaking, Arab-speaking Africa. There are many different types of Africa in Africa. And I think that the most important thing is that we, as countries within that space, that we come to something of an agreement as to how we move forward. And I think that's exactly what's happening, which is why other countries do want to become part of the BRICS format.
Many of the great icons of African liberation, such as Nasser of Egypt, Ben Bella of Algeria, Gaddafi of Libya, Lumumba of the Congo, Nkrumah of Ghana, they believed that unifying Africa economically, having a common market, collaborating with the industry, having trade agreements, will help unify Africans on other levels, because the common good, the common economic good, would help people communicate and feel that their interests are united together. And then people will forget about their political divisions or linguistic divisions. Would you encourage the AU, the African Union, to move forward, progress towards more economic unification of the country?
I think that's exactly what's happening. Ah, you see there, you made a slip.
Of the country, I said. Well, yes, it's in my heart, maybe. Of the continent.
Yeah.
So it's a good slip.
Look, when President Ramaphosa was the chairperson of the AU, they did a wonderful trade agreement that is continentally based. And that allows us to trade with each other without all the red tape that has historically been there. And it seems to be holding. It seems to be holding. So if we can keep that kind of momentum going, there's no reason at all why we can't find ourselves in a position where the wealth that is generated in Africa stays in Africa.
Again, we have to go back to how to connect to young Africans, because it's one of the most pressing issues. They are the future, and they are active in many parts of the continent. In my travels around Africa, I meet beautiful, educated, very energetic young people. But in my discussions with them, sometimes I feel they are lost. They don't know the history of the continent as well as they should. They might know the names of the icons of African history, such as your great father, but they don't know exactly the details, the proper legacy, the ideas, the philosophy, what these icons of African liberation achieved in their everyday life. And would you think that people like you and others have a responsibility to actually engage with young Africans and listen to them and have a dialogue and see how we can have even a critical look at our past, including at the life and works of our great African icons, a critical look to learn from the mistakes and to allow young Africans to speak their mind and to be who they want to be, but inspired by our past? Would that be a reasonable course of action, this engagement?
I don't think it's really that complicated. I think that the question to ask is, when kids go to school, when our children are studying, what are they learning? What is the history that they are being taught? What are they learning? Are they learning the history of the rest of the world? Are they learning the history of their continent? Which countries are they learning about? If you're in the north, are you learning about North history? Are you learning about the history of the South? What is going on? We don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that everything is out there on internet now. If you're interested, you can find out. But first you have to know you're interested. And that comes down to what you hear at home. Do your parents know? Maybe not. Nothing wrong with it. But do the teachers know? So we have to look at our education system. Are we educating our children for the countries within our continent so that Ghana knows what's happening in, I don't know, in Algeria? What are the issues there? Who are the heroes there? Do they know? Is it discussed? Do we have a Pan-African education system for this kind of thing? No, I don't think we do. So if we want our children to be able to plug in to the many icons, the many heroes, liberation heroes that we have in Africa, we need to have a commonality of approach to how we speak of them continentally, I think.
Well, we hope that such a dialogue that we are having now on RT will help people pay attention and engage, but maybe we also need to be present in social media. Do you have social media accounts yourself?
Absolutely not.
How would you engage with young Africans without being on social media?
I can't do that, no. No, too much nonsense goes on in social media for me. I'm not interested at all. I shouldn't probably say that, but I'm really not interested.
But you would, of course, engage with them on other levels and in different ways, of course.
Well, I'm happy to talk to anybody, anytime. But I don't really know what you mean about social media. If you're talking about things like Facebook and TikTok and all that, no, not for me. Absolutely not. And I'm sure it's all very useful, but I also see a lot of very negative stuff that is affecting our youth and the kind of information that they're consuming through some of these social media outlets I don't think are helpful at all. I certainly am too old for that. I can't be bothered with it, no.
Well, we hope that we will always find new ways of engaging with the young generation in our continent to preserve and revive the legacy of the great leaders of African liberation. Sister Nomatemba, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, my brother. Always a pleasure. Take care.